Say, can you see by the dawn's early lights what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam? The November election could result in Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party succeeding in hijacking the government of the United States from its people. Here is a very easy to understand graphic explanation that proves my point. In this election, for the first time 240 years after the signing of the independence, the organizing principles of the United States Constitution are the subject of a systematic and well-planned. The organizing principles already under attack are the following. Number one, the popular sovereignty principle, shown at the top. This principle means that the people command the government for their own good. This principle is then followed by principle number two, limited government, which in turn adopts principle number three in the form of a federal representative democracy. Further elaboration of internal controls favors the principle number four, separation of powers, and five, a system of checks and balances among those powers. The legislative outcome can be sent and be subjected to the principle of judicial review, number six. And finally, as destinataries of the legislation, the people can invoke their inalienable rights, also known as individual freedoms, or principle number seven, through which they create and set up the government in the first place. Looking at popular sovereignty in detail, we can say that it is also the right to define the identity of the nation and its government. And popular sovereignty is a huge network where millions of US citizens are free to worship or not, to debate, to exchange ideas, and to decide about how government is doing. It is basically a value-oriented system with idealistic goals such as happiness, personal accomplishment, and development. These goals are usually derived from religious or some form of transcendental considerations. Key to keeping the discussions alive and healthy are the freedom of speech and, by consequence, freedom of the press. The Second Amendment says basically that the people never gave up their right to bear arms, and they never gave the state the power to interfere with the right, if necessary, to defend your own person, your family, your home, and your property. The constitutional principles can be seen here in a self-reinforcing arrangement, with individual freedoms playing a key role in creating and maintaining the system running. This is a rearrangement of the previous graph. It shows the important role of the Supreme Court in balancing the public and private spheres. The attack on the constitutional system that could result in something as extreme and equivalent to the refoundation of the nation is being done with the help of the mass media. Many very important news organizations are systematically trying to influence the result they prefer, that is, electing Hillary Clinton. Shown here, the biased media going against the standard ethical principles that bind newsmen and women and has decided to disqualify one contender, namely Donald Trump, the Republican nominee. To do so, they pair themselves and stimulate the involvement of the so-called one-issue voters, which they then can convince to vote directly for whomever is going to fix their problem. These voters have a one-track mind and were never considered to be a threat until their numbers grew fantastically. Let's call legitimizing single-issue voters by the press as step number one in the attack of the constitutional system. Single-issue voters have been systematically co-opted by the Democratic Party. These voters depart from the learned citizens which the Founding Fathers assumed were those entitled to vote. In a way, the system is being defeated by single-issue voters, very short-sighted and egotistical. This graph shows that if Mrs. Clinton is elected, she will proceed to immediately name every Supreme Court justice with a worldview consistent with the Democratic agenda. From then on, everything runs downhill really fast. This is not judicial interpretation, but judicial invasion of legislative powers. It is deemed that the court will also condone many actions of the executive power which are borderline or fall into the excessive use of presidential power. The whole system has been, by now, deliberately thrown off balance, and the snowball effect becomes an avalanche. The separation of powers is probably the first principle that collapses once the court begins to take its new activist role. Not much later, the checks and balances principle, as well as the states' rights, become a thing of the past. Sooner than you think, the government becomes unlimited in its powers. The reason is that both control loops are now gone. No more electoral loop and no more effective judicial review. As you can see here for yourself, and I want to make it very clear, is that every principle of government has been under attack for some time during the past 8 years. The election is only going to legitimize a faster takeover. Congress is burdened by special interest and suffers paralysis by analysis. Debates will become very long and destructive. The executive is taking action freely without any opposition. The institutions have collapsed, and the government is responding with Big Brother, or should I say, Big Mother strategies. It is hard to tell whether guns or religion will be the first on the list to be wiped out. Every single principle will be replaced by policies which have already been carried out or are waiting to erupt in a not so surprising way. Chaos has appeared suddenly or just enough to catch a whole nation by surprise. Thanks for watching.